Okay, welcome friends to the second webinar organized by Lions Business Forum and a Mulund initiative by Lions Club of Mulund. Uh, we had started this webinar series keeping into consideration that people are still under lockdown, and we are trying to get the topics which are in general but valuable for most of the participants. Um, Today's speaker is Lion Jignesh Ganatra. Um, I'm not going to get much into it because next person, President Lion Rajesh Lakshmanan, will introduce to him to all. But yes, the only thing I would like to say is, please, if you have any questions during his webinar, during his talk, you can publish all the questions on the Q&A so that at the end of his Jignesh Bhai's talk, somebody from our side, either Samrat or Rajesh, will be taking the questions on your behalf, and we can really, and Jignesh Bhai will try to address all of them. So thank you everybody for joining us. Over to Rajesh.
Rajesh bhai, please unmute your mic. Rajesh ji, unmute your mic, please.
Yeah, I have unmuted. Sorry. Okay. Welcome. As already Kiran has introduced myself as the president for Lions Club of Mulund. Now, today's webinar, which has been going to be conducted by Lion Jignesh Ganatra, who is also a practicing chartered accountant by profession, and he is also a registered insolvency professional and registered valuer with Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. As you know, this bankruptcy and insolvency and recovery is very much needed, and related to the COVID and other things going on, and lot of recession is there in the market, and you can always take his help. And he is also his areas of practice includes handling cases at NCLT, valuation assignments for company mergers, share allotment, ESOP, etc. Apart from the traditional chartered accountant practice of audit and assurance. Given his extensive experience in banking industry, which includes DBC, DBS Bank, Citibank, and ICICI Bank, he is also adept with handling loan syndication projects. So very helpful person. You should always take his guidance. And I will request now Jignesh Ganatra, line Jignesh Ganatra, to take forward with the webinar. Thanks a lot, Jignesh.
Thanks, Rajesh, for the introduction. I will be taking you all through this presentation on insolvency and bankruptcy code. While I would love to take the questions impromptu, because it happens that people tend to forget what they want, what came to their mind. But anyways, I'm also okay if you ask me at the end. So when you talk about insolvency, what does it come to your mind? It's basically something which is very bad, something which has gone wrong. You're not able to pay up your creditors. That is the thought which comes to your mind. Insolvency and bankruptcy, both the words are like a taboo when it comes to that word, in the Indian culture at least. But what happens, if we keep a patient in an ICU and allow it to language. So when you talk about insolvency, I think my voice is echoing, or somebody else is speaking. Can you hear me all?
Yeah, we can all hear you. Please go on.
Yeah. See, the idea is if there's a patient who is not keeping well, he's admitted to an ICU, and then you allow it to languish all the time into the ICU. Okay, there is no mercy killing as of now in India, so you can't take the ventilators off. And then what happens? 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 10 months, then it becomes a drag on the family's financial health. Okay, so that is what the reality is. If you think very objectively and clinically, keeping all your emotions aside. So same is it true with the case of a company. If the company is not well, it is not able to cater to the debts of the community. So the creditors are not getting paid, the employees are not getting paid their salaries, the suppliers are not able to recover money for the material they are supplied. So what happens? How far the bankers are not able to get the interest on time? So how far can you tolerate the company? If you compare with the earlier provisions like BIFR, Board for Industrial and Financial Reconstruction, wherein any company which used to get sick used to get admitted under SICA. SICA was the erstwhile Sick Industrial Companies Act. Okay, so there the company used to languish for years together, or rather decades, and there was no resolution. Okay, the company was languishing, there was no resolution, and the promoters, the defaulting companies promoters were making merry because nobody used to catch them. They used to get a patronage under the SICA Act, Sick Industrial Companies Act. So that's where IBC is a drastic difference, has a drastic difference compared to SICA, Sick Industrial Companies Act. Under IBC, what happens? Everything is time bound. You get a time of 6 months. Either you come online or you face liquidation. That's as simple as that. If you're not able to meet the dues of the suppliers, if you're not able to make payment to the employees, if you're not able to make interest payments and loan repayments to the bankers, might as well you rectify yourself in 6 months. If you're not able to do so, then liquidate. That means the ventilators are taken off and the patient is allowed to die, because nobody benefits out of a ailing patient. Okay, it becomes a drag on the society. So that is the basic funda of insolvency and bankruptcy code. Coming on to the next slide, if you see, you might be hearing in the press and all that the ease of doing business in India has jumped drastically. This is the main talking point of our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi. He keeps saying that the ease of doing business has improved like anything, and one of the, if not the only contributor, one of the significant contributor is insolvency and bankruptcy code. Today, many companies who are having head offices outside India, many MNCs, are comfortable investing money and making investments in India because we have a law called IBC. Because tomorrow they know if there's something goes wrong, if the party is not able to pay, they can easily invoke IBC and they can recover the money. So this is one of the comfort factor for most of the MNCs and outside overseas investors. They are more comfortable because of this law. And same is true with banks which are opening branches in India, like OCBC, which is a Chinese bank, or say DBS, which is Development Bank of Singapore. DBS is having more confidence now since that IBC has come in, because they'll be able to recover money from the NPAs, non-performing accounts. And typically when you talk about a business success or a failure, there are 7 reasons why a business fails. Most important is there is no planning and there is a poor management. People just start just because they feel very happy and very excited about an idea. They start with the business. They don't plan for it appropriately. That is number one reason why business fail. Second is lack of cash flow and capital. Profit to hai, lekin cash profit nahi hai. It's all book profits. People who are from the accounting area would be more comfortable understanding a book profit and a cash profit, because with profits you can't pay to the suppliers. You need cash to pay to the suppliers. So cash is a different ball game altogether. So lack of cash flow and capital is second most important reason why business fail, and that is where IBC comes to your rescue. Third is the location is wrong. Fourth is the inadequate marketing planning. You're not able to sell what you're producing. Fifth is competition is not researched properly. Others are there. Competition is cannibalizing your business. Other people are just eating up your business. Sixth is the choice of business itself is wrong. Seventh is the business grows too quickly and your capital is not able to cope up with the speed of the business. So we'll be focusing only on the point number 2 of the 7 reasons, which is lack of cash flow and capital. How does IBC helps you to tackle this point? Why business fail? Because there is no cash flow. The data are getting stuck. All the data are sticky data. After 6 months, they don't even give any reason. They don't even recognize you when you go and ask for money. 6 months ho gaya. 3 saal ke baad to they'll be more than happy. Why? Because Limitation Act bars them from making any claims, any payments. So 3 years is a very dangerous time period. You should be very careful. कोई भी डेट हो 3 साल से ज्यादा पहले एक्शन ले लेना है, वरना लिमिटेशन एक्ट में यू विल बी क्लीन बोल्ड. ओके. So the fourth slide talks about the evolution of legal remedies available for debt recovery. It's just like a human mankind race which has evolved from being a Homo sapien to a gorilla to a human being like. Okay, so today we can say that earlier we had these are all colonial laws. If you see Indian Penal Code 1860, Negotiable Instrument Act 1881, these all are colonial laws basically drafted by the Britishers, and we have been taking it forward since then, like since donkeys of years old. So we are not repealing them because they are working and they are good enough. Like what new will you replace it with? Okay. So very initial was Indian Penal Code. What we can do with Indian Penal Code, you can do a nuisance value for the promoters. You can jail them, you can do this and that, but it's very difficult. It goes years and years together. There is no timeline like 6 months or say 180 days. There is nothing like that. It's all open-ended. Negotiable Instrument Act में क्या कर सकते हैं आप? Section 138. Okay, 138 you can file a check bounce case. So what is 138? 138 is a criminal liability against the promoters. Okay, the promoter will say, I don't have anything because he has transferred all the assets in the company's name. What can you do? You can't because the company and the promoter are distinct persons. You are in the legal analogy, like in the legal world, the company has a distinct identity from the promoter. So Negotiable Instrument Act is more to do with the remedy against the individual and not against the company. Third is the Code of Civil Procedure, wherein you can file summary suits with the district magistrate or say local small causes courts or something like that. And fourth is the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, which is typically out of court settlement. Okay, so basically this will work only if you have an arbitration clause in the agreement. If you don't have this clause, then you can't invoke this act. The most recent is of 2016, which is December 2016, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, wherein in a nutshell, the debtor loses control of the business. The insolvency professional takes it over and then runs the business for 6 months, looks out for probable investors. If they get the investor, well and good. If not, liquidate. Lock, stock and barrel, sell everything, liquidate. So that's why it's a very dangerous law. People get scared of it because you have spent your lifetime nurturing the business, bringing up the company, and suddenly today I step in as saying that, look, Mr. Promoter, look, Mr. CEO, you're out. Now I'll be occupying the cabin. All your net banking passwords are mine. So now you have no control. You can't decide whom to sell, whom to buy from. Everything will be decided by me. That is what typically happens once the NCLT gives a admission order on the insolvency petition. Okay. The next slide is about Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code in a nutshell, like what all it means. So basically, creditor moves the NCLT. Okay. So creditor could be anybody. Creditor could be a financial creditor like a bank. It could be an operational creditor like a supplier. Like most of you guys would be operational creditors who have supplied material to the debtor to the company and the company is not paying. So creditor is typically a financial creditor, operational creditor. Even employees are creditors. If the employees are not getting their money back, they can file a IBC suit with the NCLT. Okay. So even home buyers are creditors. Home buyers are treated as financial creditors because they have lent money. In a way, they are not the advance which they pay for acquiring a property is like a advance. The advance is more like a lending of a money. Okay, the builder is short of funds and they get some flat. So the flat owners who are not getting the possession can also move the NCLT using IBC. So now NCLT admits the debtor under IBC. Okay, the petition goes through and NCLT admits it. Now what happens? The debtor loses control of the business. One fine day when the order is admitted, I'll go with the police protection and I'll take my order from NCLT saying that, come on, Mr. Promoter, vacate the seat. I'll occupy the seat. I'm the new owner. I'll be running the company for 6 months. I'll be filing a petition with the. I'll be filing the RHP request for. It's like a red herring prospectus नहीं बोल सकते उसको RFRP बोल सकते हैं. Request for proposal, like it's like a Form G kind of thing wherein we invite expression of interest from probable investors. So that is what we file. That is what we sell the company to as a going concern to some new investor. Okay. And then what happens? NCLT appoints IP to run the business. Business is put for sale. If there is no taker, as I told you, the patient can't be kept on ventilator for donkeys of years. 6 months में नहीं हुआ तो फिर company has to be liquidated. Okay. So overall time taken, when I say 6 months, you get an extension of another 3 months. So to 180 plus 3 months, which is 90. So 270 more days you get. Plus, if at all that process is stalled due to some legal procedures, then you get additional 60 days. So 270 and 60 become 330. So not more than 330 days. That means a little under than year. Either the company gets a new promoter or the company gets into liquidation. So it's like either this or that. There is no third thing. Everything is time bound. I feel most of them may not be aware of this law, so they might feel that ऐसा भी कुछ होता है करके. So it's an exciting thing for most of them. Like now there are certain nitty-gritties. Like everything looks very hunky and dory when I talk about insolvency, bankruptcy, and all. But when you go to the NCLT, to the court, to the tribunal will ask you many questions. Like, okay, your petition will be thrown out of the window if it doesn't follow this pre-eligibility conditions. Like, what are the pre-eligibility conditions? Most important is like the creditor can apply, but when he can apply, the debt should be due and debt should be overdue. These are the two things. If you give a 30 days credit period to your customer, and if the customer doesn't pay after 15 days, you can't immediately run to IBC, to the court, saying that 15 days हो गया पैसा नहीं दिया. लेकिन तुमने तो 30 दिन का credit period दिया था ना. So the credit period on the 31st day you have the right. So the debt should be due and it should be overdue. That's the basic condition. Okay. And the defaulting debtor should be a company or a LLP. That means अगर आपका पैसा निकल रहा है किसी sole proprietor के पास से या किसी partnership firm के पास से, so I'm sorry, IBC is not for you at the moment. Although the IBC has the provisions, but these are not notified as yet. So for the simple reason that NCLTs are burdened with so much of workload, if the floodgates are opened and they allow debtors like proprietary firms or partnership firms, then NCLT will get thrown under a lot many cases. So that is the main reason the provisions are not notified as yet, although it's there in the IBC. So the debtor जिससे पैसा आना है वो कंपनी होना चाहिए या LLP होना चाहिए, ठीक है? And till 23rd or 25th March, the limit for filing IBC was only 1 lakh. Suddenly they have increased it to 1 crore. All said and done, they say COVID pandemic ho gaya hai, ye wo, so the people should not be unnecessarily oppressed, and that's why we are increasing the limit from 1 lakh to 1 crore. But my hunch is because they are already saddled with so many cases that they are not able to cope up with it, and that's the main reason they are increased it from 1 lakh to 1 crore, and they are conveniently taking the cover of COVID-19. Okay, so there should not be any dispute. Say if you have supplied some resin, chemical resin material supply kiya hai, and there is a issue, there's an issue with the quality of the resin. It was not of the same composition which the debtor has ordered. And in such case, if the debtor does not pay you, then I'm sorry, I can't help you with IBC. Reason being, IBC में जो NCLT court है, that is a summary court. It is not sitting there to adjudicate within your disputes and all. It's a very clinical court. It's a very summary court. Dispute है, debt है, due है, overdue है, debtor जो है वो company है, LLP है, 1 crore से ज़्यादा है, okay, admitted. That's all. They won't be coming into the nitty-gritties like, okay, what was the dispute? Resin quality में क्या problem था? They'll straight away throw off your petition out of the window if there's a dispute in the quality of material supplied. Okay, and demand notices to be served. That's the principle of natural justice. Like straight away you can't go to the NCLT. You'll have to issue a last warning kind of thing to the debtor. Maybe a 10 days notice. That is under Section 8. That's a demand notice. If he pays you, well and good. It doesn't pay, then you are free to go to NCLT. And it should not be hit by the Limitation Act. That's what I told before, that the debt due should not be older than 3 years, else you are gone. So you might be wondering, ऐसा भी होता है 6 महीने में insolvency नहीं हुआ तो liquidate कर दो, ये सब. It sounds very music to the ears, but does it happen? Does this code really work? So to cite an example, I'm giving you an example of SR Steel. SR Steel is a biggest NPA, one of the dirty dozens, which RBI had forcibly put the banks under IBC. Like RBI gave some 12 names. These are the big NPA names. Nothing doing, no SARFAESI, nothing like that. तुम सीधा IBC में इसको resolution निकालो. So SR Steel is one of the dirty dozens which the RBI has forcefully given the banks to resolve. So Ruya said that I don't have a penny. करना है कर लो, जो करना है कर लो, ठीक है. So the banks invoked IBC. This is RBI's recommendation. And then what happened? ArcelorMittal, which is Lakshmi Mittal, who is the owner of ArcelorMittal, was anyways scouting for a opportunity to own a steel mill, and he was finding even difficult. Forget the steel mill. He was even finding difficult to buy a land. Land ही खरीद नहीं पा रहा था. SR steel mill, steel factory खरीदना तो बहुत दूर की बात है. So he had made attempts at POSCO in Orissa and all, like, तो लैंड ही खरीद नहीं पा रहा था. यहाँ पे उसको बनी बनाई फैक्ट्री मिल रही थी SR स्टील की. So it was a good opportunity for the Lakshmi Mittal. So he took over the opportunity and he gave a quote of 43,000 crores to the creditors of SR Steel. Okay. So what happened? Suddenly Ruya said that no, don't sell my company to ArcelorMittal. I will pay each and every penny. He's paying you 43,000 crores. I'll pay you 53,000 crores, the entire sum. So then the suitor was the ArcelorMittal company, took it to NCLAT. NCLAT is like a one body above the NCLT. NCLT, one tribunal, NCLT is National Company Law Tribunal, and NCLAT is National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. It sits in Delhi. So NCLAT said that, okay, Mr. Ruya, you do one thing, you pay the entire 83,000 crores, which is the NPA with all other banks. Like the Ruya Group has lot many companies. So you clear all the NPA of all the Ruya Group companies and take your SR Steel back. And that is where ArcelorMittal, then again it didn't stop there. It further went to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court ultimately ruled in favor of ArcelorMittal. And now its SR Steel is not owned by Ruya, it is owned by Lakshmi Mittal. So the ninth, the penultimate slide is what else does IBC offer? Okay. So in case today what happens, many of the promoters are owning multiple companies. If you approach any small person, he'll say, okay, I have 10 companies. Only 2 or 3 might be functional, others might not be functional. So if you want to wind it up, with the creation of company, what happens, many compliances come in. Like you have to comply with the ESIC Act, you have to comply with the Provident Fund Act. If you have more than 7 people employed, you will have to comply with income tax, you'll have to file returns, you'll have to file MCA returns, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, you'll have to do so many compliances. So earlier, the winding up of company, which is a voluntary liquidation, wherein there is no issue with the creditors are getting paid properly, but still the promoter wants to close the company, wants to wind up the company. So that can be done under IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. This was earlier handled by Companies Act, but now this has been moved to IBC. So this is something more what IBC can offer. And of course, even the home buyers can approach the NCLT for the overdue long possession. The possession is not getting, they are not receiving the possession from the builder. So even then the home buyers can move the NCLT. I made a very short and succinct slide, keeping more room for questions because that is how I think you'll be able to comprehend it better. Over to Rajesh. Rajesh?
No, I think we have Samrat Gadodia. He's also with us, and he will be asking the questions now. Whatever questions are there published, asked by people, and if any he has received any more. What I would suggest is at the end of question answers, in case Jignesh bhai, you have anything to add on to those, it would be lovely. Thank you.
Sure, definitely. Yes, Samrat, please.
Good evening, Jignesh bhai. First thing is, it's a very elaborate thing which you have already given, but the first question that comes to the mind is, if the debt is for more than 3 years, is there any remedy? As you said, it's a time barring thing. If within 3 years, if you are not filing a case, post that, if it exceeds 3 years, still there is a possibility of doing anything, or it's a gone case?
See, for example, your debt was due on say 1st May 2016. Okay, that was the last bill which you had raised with the debtor. That was the last bill. So it's more than 3 years old. But thereafter, what happened, he was making some part payments. पार्ट पेमेंट्स कर रहा था, वो पूरा इनवॉइस नहीं क्लियर किया लेकिन पार्ट पेमेंट्स कर रहा था. सो यू कैन से दैट इट वाज नॉट हिट, दैट इज नॉट हिट बाय लिमिटेशन. और if there is a case which is already going on, then anyways you can't do IBC because it will be thrown out again saying that it's a disputed due. If the case is already running, if the case is running, then it doesn't become barred by limitation. Okay, but that doesn't mean you can come under IBC because it becomes disputed, which is one of the precondition. A disputed debt can't be placed before the NCLT.
Okay. The next question is, someone who's not aware about a case going on to a particular company and he has done business with them or has lent the money or given services or goods, and then he realizes that, okay, I was not aware about that, they are into an NCLT case going on. In that scenario, will he be able to recover his money with an ongoing case which is already on the company?
See, if the case, there are two things. That case which is already ongoing, the IBC is already going on, right? Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code.
Yes.
So it would be either admitted or it would not be admitted, or it would be in the process, right?
Right.
If it is in the process, then you might as well wait for the decision of that case. And once it gets admitted, you can file a claim with the insolvency professional of that case, of that company.
Okay. Okay. The next question is, does LLP also come under the NCLT law?
Yes, if your data is a LLP, it's still eligible.
Okay. And now, since the new rules which have been revised by the Finance Ministry, but for any outstanding above 1 crore only, they're going to be accepting the NCLT cases. In that scenario, for smaller customers or debtors, what is the solution?
They can go for what you call summary suits with the district magistrate or like that.
Okay, and even for the this limit which has been there, it's a permanent limit or is it a temporary limit?
No, Mr. M.M. Kumar, who is the president of NCLT Delhi principal bench, he just on one of the webinars he said that this limit is going to stay forever, like they're not going to bring down the limit.
Okay. So that's it for the questions from our end. We don't have any more questions which we find useful, but it has been a very elaborate one. Thank you very much for that. Over to you, Kiran.
My pleasure.
So Jignesh bhai, from your experience, yes, you did say that he has to go for a suit with the local judiciary for anybody who's having less than 1 crore. But isn't that a very long and elaborate procedure for the small enterprises?
See, that's what the intent behind it. IBC, they have kept it for the elite few. For the small enterprises, they are asking to go for the regular cases like money suit or a summary suit.
Yeah, but then the big companies were, because they already have lawyers on their panel, so they wouldn't bother for the smaller guys, and the smaller guys would anyways be killed in that sense.
See, it's basically what I can suggest is these people, the industry body like MSME body can always lobby and put across a request with the IBBI, who is a nodal body to control and regulate this profession, this IBC, the entire code. The MSME head can lobby to bring back the limit, if not 1 lakh, at least to 10 lakhs from 1 crore. So nobody stops you from.
As of now, there is no option.
As of now, there is no option. But if you make a big case, like you might be supported by MSME or with some other ASSOCHAM ko present karoge aap, which is again a commerce and ministry body. So if you can put your case across through them, then it may work. You can bring it back to 10 lakhs, if not 1 lakh. ऐसा कुछ कर सकते हैं. So
that is as far as the limitation is concerned. Okay, now let's say if there's a company, ABC company, wherein they have many debtors, many people to whom they are liable to pay back, but in smaller amounts. Can all these individual or the companies come together and the amount can go above 1 crore, and can they file a suit together?
It can happen only in the case of employees and workmen, not in the case of suppliers.
Okay.
Or it can happen in the case of home buyers, wherein home buyers can form a team. And the collective amount can exceed 1 crore, but not in the case of suppliers.
So suppliers are anyways left to the mercy.
The suppliers are left high and dry, maybe. Because I had a couple of cases which I was on the verge of filing with NCLT, and suddenly the debt was due for 70 lakhs. So suddenly it got cleaned out, because of the recent amendment.
Okay. So that's actually, so people have to actually look into this, like maybe all the associations, they can come together and
they can put a
talk to
request.
MSME.
Yeah, they can put a collective and joint request saying that listen, we are getting aggrieved and we are not able to make use, and the benefits of these laws are not passed on to us. So we are like feeling deprived. So you can make a case.
Okay, another, like, I know that this is a time-bound thing. You already answered that question, but the point is, let's say the company has not made any payments in between, but there's correspondence going on between the two companies. So
Correct.
would that still be under time-bound thing, or it will say that since the correspondence is not related to that matter, that although the invoice might be 3 years old, but there's a correspondence going on which is there on records with both the companies?
See, there has to be acknowledgement of debt from the debtor side. Whom are you corresponding with? Again,
With the
correspondence could be saying
debtor.
that, yes, I'll pay. He'll keep saying that, yes, on emails, I'll pay. Give me some time. I'm facing difficulties. So there should be some acknowledgement of debt. Maybe when you are putting an email to them, you should say that if at all you can't pay, please acknowledge this thing and give me this acknowledgement on your letterhead. So that will help you from avoiding the case to going under the Limitation Act.
Yeah,
that is one of the prudent
That was my
practices.
exact question. That was my exact question. Yeah.
So you should take acknowledgement of debt from your parties periodically.
Yeah, and maybe even if we get the ledger statements with the duly stamped and signed, is that acceptable?
Yeah, that should be fine. Yeah.
Okay. I don't see any more questions coming in, and I don't recall anything right now that's coming at the top of my mind. If anything is there that you would like to add, because we still have some time with us.
See, what I would want to tell you is that insolvency and bankruptcy code is one thing, but you should think more from a business practicality point of view. When you're doing a business, people get so taken over by greed that they keep lending and giving material on credit, diya, udhari pe diya. So you should have your checks and balances in place. Like any customer, I'll not lend, I'll not give material beyond X rupees. That whatever X you are comfortable with. So if your turnover is 1 lakh rupees, it's just an example, just turnover 1 lakh hai, तो कोई भी customer को 5,000 से ज़्यादा नहीं देना है. That means no customer should be having more than 5% of the turnover in credit. So these are just examples, like that is what you can keep a checks and balances. ये IBC तक आने की बात नौबत ही नहीं होनी चाहिए, ठीक है? And there is another concept called information utility. The way you have CIBIL, tomorrow if you don't pay the money to the credit card guys, what they'll do, they'll tamper your, they'll tarnish your score, right, with CIBIL. They'll report it to the CIBIL department and your score will go down. So do you guys know that there is a CIBIL kind of thing even for business people? Like even you can report to somebody. The similar thing which is there, just like CIBIL, is IU, which is called information utility. Okay, so today the limit is 1 crore. You can't go under IBC, but you can always put a pressure through IU. You can report to IU, information utility. Okay, so that is IU is like the collection agency from the government will do the chasing with the party. Paisa de do, paisa de do. 3 times they will chase, 3 times they'll put an email. 4th time, if they don't get the money, they'll record it as default. So the suppliers will be having some comfort with the IU platform, information utility. And tomorrow you can always produce the record of default, which IU will give you in another court of law. It could be NCLT, it could be summary suit with some district level court or whatever, high court or whatever.
Okay. We have 2 questions here which have just popped up in my radar screen here. First is by Lion Sudhakar Joshi. What is happening to DHL-FL case? Can we get our FD money back? Any idea on that? Can you throw some light? For
DHL, there is a ex-IOB chairman, Mr. Subramaniam, who is acting as an administrator. Is like a role is similar of a IP. So DHFL was about to open the pre-bids in 24th or 25th March ko bids open hone wala tha, because there are lots of interest evinced by many investors who are interested to take over Dewan Housing Finance, DHFL. So 24th, 25th March ko the bids were gonna open. But unfortunately, because of this COVID, everything has got into a limbo, and that's why on the other day I was just listening to a webinar by Mr. Subramaniam Kumar, who is the administrator for DHFL appointed by the RBI. So he was very positive. He said that many bids have come in. Many people are excited and interested to take over, and I feel the FD owners will get the money back once the new investor is taking control of DHFL.
Okay. There's one more question, two more questions now. I have 2 lakhs outstanding from a company. It's only one same question. Company not paying. What can I do to recover the amount?
See, 2 lakhs. Unfortunately, if had it been not the amendment of 1 lakh to 1 crore, you would have got the money of 2 lakhs only on demand notice. आपका petition file करने का भी जरूरत नहीं था. That it wouldn't have advanced to that stage of filing petition because nobody would want to lose the control of the company for 2 lakhs. They'll immediately pay you 2 lakhs. So Section 8 demand notice would have got the money back, which has been the case with lots of my customers who had been fortunate enough to use this IBC before 24th March, and they could recover with demand notice itself. At a small cost, they could get the money back. So thankfully, they were lucky enough to use this law to the advantage. But with 2 lakhs, if at all you have some check bounces, you can create a nuisance value for the party by filing Section 138. And the moment you file 138, 20% of the amount due has to be deposited mandatorily. But again, Section 138 has to be done within 30 days. If 30 days has passed, then you can do that.
I personally had an experience in my company. There was my business factory is based in Baroda and my client was in Anand, Vidyanagar. So that was not too far, but still, and they didn't pay a few invoices to me. So in spite of sending many reminders, and then I did file a summary suit to them.
Okay.
As soon as I filed a summary suit, first they said that, okay, we'll fight the case. But within second hearing or third hearing, they came back and said, we are going to, we'll make all the payments to you. But please waive off the interest. So that was negotiation thing then that went in.
Correct.
But that's it. Then another case which I filed was for customer in Delhi. It's again summary suit. The advantage of this, what I felt was, since I was in Baroda and I could file the case in Baroda as a jurisdiction. For all the clients, they were outside that area. For them to hire a local lawyer or get their lawyer coming in, and so that all costs are much higher. So I think even that, unless the company is adamant, okay, kuch nahi, jo hoga dekha jayega. Then
that's a valid point. Yeah.
So that, like you said, create a nuisance value for them, for the company.
Correct.
And that nuisance value adds up to a much bigger amount than what they owe the company. So that's how you can recover the money. That's what I felt that, I mean, that's from my personal experience.
So that is what you should be very careful when you are drafting an invoice. The invoice should always carry a due date. It should not be open. People put a date. There is no due date. Payment to be received by so and so. Due date has to be always mentioned on the invoice. And the invoice, it should be clearly mentioned that if the invoice is not paid on time, it is liable to 24% interest per annum. So if you mention that, then you are rightfully in your claims to make 24% interest as well. Otherwise, the party will say interest was never communicated to me. So it's very important to see the invoice. What all things you have written in the invoice.
Yeah. Again, one question that arises. I was lucky enough in that case, but generally not all would be lucky. Depending on who's the client. I say I am the supplier, so I mentioned in my invoice as my area where Mumbai, Baroda, whatever it is, as the area for jurisdiction. But the PO or the PO from the customer says that jurisdiction is their area. Now, these are two conflicting opinions. So which one takes the precedence?
See what happens that again your invoice and again his PO. Purchase order, both are unilateral. The purchase order as well as the invoice are unilateral. Okay.
Okay.
So it's like it's not an agreement. It is just a submission. You are saying something, he is saying something. So it doesn't carry any weight in the court of law. Okay. So typically in case of IBC, the jurisdiction which is applicable is the jurisdiction of the registered office of the CD. of the corporate debtor.
Okay.
When you talk about IBC, the jurisdiction is the jurisdiction of the registered office of the corporate debtor. Like if the CD is placed out of Bombay, Maharashtra, Bombay bench would be the jurisdiction. So typically it doesn't make any sense because you invoice and your purchase order, there is no agreement. But two parties are not agreeing to any particular jurisdiction.
No, but
Doesn't
that's
carry
for,
weight.
yeah, I understand. That would be for, but for the smaller thing, can any client say that in a court of law for anything that's below 1 lakh, 2 lakh, like we just saw that 2 lakh case question coming in, that the lawyer of the client represents in the court that our PO is very clear. It says the jurisdiction has to be in our area. So please transfer the case to that area.
See, typically what holds good is the place where the goods were supplied. Where is the VAT? आपका VAT किधर का है? Value added tax या GST registration किधर का है? You understanding? If the GST registration of the supplier is of X state, then X state's jurisdiction will prevail. So where was the good supplied? That is more important.
So supplied from?
Where was the end consumption of the goods? That takes most important. Like where was the goods consumed? Like.
Okay, so
in that case, is fine.
No, so again, now that goes against the supplier. Like I said, I was in a lucky situation that when I filed the suit in Baroda, the Delhi people or the other people came, that they would have to come down. They said that there are a lot of cost for them. But if my client in Delhi makes a representation that we are the consumer, so transfer the case to Delhi. So in that case, as a supplier is in a difficult situation because I'm not a big company, and for me the costs add up. Going to that.
It happens, so it's a decision of the judge, like wherever your case is there. So if it can be transferred at the whims and fancies of the customer's lawyer. The case where it's already running, the judge has to agree that it is not within his jurisdiction. Only then it can be transferred. Just because the customer's lawyer is saying that
no,
the case
I understand that. What
if the case is already lodged and accepted somewhere, then that judge has to opine on whether he is comfortable transferring the case. It's a matter of getting the case admitted. Wherever the case gets admitted, that judge has to agree upon the transfer of jurisdiction.
Okay, so basically then it's all a fight in the court. How the two lawyers put it across.
Because you can't suo moto on your own, just transfer the jurisdiction. उसने बोला, lawyer ने बोला, ऐसा नहीं होता है. The judge has to opine, saying that he's giving an NOC to transfer of jurisdiction. Once it gets admitted.
Okay. Thank you. I don't see any more questions coming in here.
Thank you all.
I think Anything else you would like to add or something?
I can field some answers if you have any queries. Like. So one thing is you guys remember that anytime there's a default, don't worry, even if it is less than 1 crore, feel free to report it to IU, information let him report kar lo, because that record of default, the government is having all these facilities. You guys are not using it. So it's like you can't just complain about this law, that law, but whatever is available, at least that you can think of. Like, okay, the threshold is too high. Why don't you use IU, information utility? At least we'll create a government record of default. So I don't know how many of you guys already knew about this.
No, I don't think. At least I was not aware of IU, honestly.
Yeah. It's similar to CIBIL, like.
Okay. Fantastic. So how does one go around doing that? I mean, is there any?
See, you have to go to the website iu.nesl.co.in, or you can just say NESL IU on Google. The first hit would be IU website. Okay, then you have to register and create a login for you as an entity. Okay, so if yours is a company, then create a login for a company as a corporate, and then what all debts are taken by you will also be reflected in your login once the login is created. जहां से आपने working capital loan लिया है, कुछ term loan लिया है, सब कुछ दिखेगा आपको login करते ही. Once you do that, you can some party is not paying you, then you can raise a ticket on it. It's like you're recording a due. You have to record a due over there, and then once you record that, the IU would be following up on your behalf. They will be sending 3 SMSs, 3 emails, And then if you have a phone number, at times even call, and if there is no reply, if he doesn't cooperate, he'll record it as a default, and that you can use it in the court of law.
Okay, now I just received, meanwhile, while we were discussing this, a few questions more. So let's carry on with that.
Yeah.
The question is, my invoices contain MSME number for which the payment has to be received. Due to the difficulty, the company is not in a position to make the payment. Just wanted to understand. So is there any advantage of having an MSME registration?
Yes, there's a big advantage in having a MSME registration. You can pursue the remedy available under the MSME Act. And today it is very much mandatory as a rule that the company should not be making any defaults to MSME. So whenever there is an annual audit or statutory audit of a company being made, it is mandatory for the company to disclose under debtors. The balance sheet will be having an item called debtors. And if you go to the schedule, the debtors would be having a classification: debt due to MSME, debt due to non-MSME. So if there's a debt due to MSME, then it's a glaring point, like it's a blot on the company.
Okay, so that is why, like many good companies ask for the MSME registrations and all those things.
Correct.
Okay.
And
great.
now recently the threshold has also been relaxed for MSME. In fact, they have been relaxed on machinery investment levels and all.
Yeah.
Recently there's an amendment. MSME levels have been relaxed.
Yeah.
Micro, small and medium enterprises.
So another question is, this is in regards to MNCs.
Okay.
So because most of this, like they say that jurisdiction is US or Japan or something, how would it will that be an issue with the supplier?
So the corporate debtor is an MNC, you are saying, right?
Yeah.
See, if you look at the law, IBC, if you read the act, there are 255 sections in it, and none of these sections give any leeway that if the debtor is an MNC, then he goes scot-free. There's nothing like that.
Okay.
So the same lines will apply. The debt should be due. The debt should be overdue. The debt should be not be disputed. It should be more than 1 crore.
Irrespective of where their jurisdiction is or where the company is from, it remains the same for everybody.
Obviously, they'll be having a registered office in India, no? So you can file a case against them.
Okay. And normally, what would be the time taken, like if you somebody files a suit in NCLT?
See, today the average time taken for admission of the suit is 4 to 5 months, not before that.
Okay.
There's a huge backlog with the NCLT. So today we are sitting in May. So June, July, August, September, October the number aa jayega aapka. First hearing. That is the first hearing I'm talking about. I'm not saying the first hearing he'll admit the case immediately. Yes, it's admitted. Again, there will be multiple rounds. So first hearing 5 minutes mein aa jayega aapka.
So in a lighter vein, there seems to be more defaulters in the higher category of 1 crore and more. That's why it's taking more time.
अभी तक का जो एक्सपीरियंस था वो 1 लाख वाला था ना. 1 करोड़ का एक्सपीरियंस अभी आएगा.
अच्छा,
अभी आएगा. I hope the time gets shrunk because of this 1 crore limit. The benches are 29. Earlier there were 22 benches. So now we have 7 more benches. So the government is working on that front. They're adding more and more benches. Now they're also proposing a NCLAT in Chennai as well. पहले appellate tribunal से दिल्ली में था NCLAT. So now they are adding in one NCLAT in Chennai as well.
Okay, good. Is there anything more here? If I am a home buyer and builder not giving refund or possession from last 4 years, please advise in that.
You can always file a Section 7 petition with NCLT, and we can invoke IBC. And again, there is one finer point for home buyers. The people who are filing a case should be at least 10% of the allottees or 100, whichever is lower. Okay, that is one more precondition. Unlike ये सब supplier में precondition नहीं था. In home buyer में one more precondition is the litigant, the applicant who is filing the suit should be forming 10% of the total number of allottees. Say a project is having 200 home buyers. एक प्रोजेक्ट में 200 फ्लैट ओनर्स है. So if 2 people go and file the suit, it's not legible, it's not valid. At least 20 होना चाहिए. Okay. So 10% होना चाहिए. 200 flat allottees है, तो 20% should be there for a valid IBC claim. Or if it is only 50 flat allottees, then at least और इसे 100 होना चाहिए. If there 1000 है, तो फिर 200 का जरूरत नहीं, 100 होगा तो भी चलेगा. Flat allottees. 20%, 10% or 100, which is lower. That is one additional criteria.
I think that is for that it does not like there's no harassment in coming in for the builder. I think it looks from that angle.
This was not the case before. This is come in wide an amendment to the law. Earlier what used to happen मेरे फ्लैट में उसने लाल के जगह पीला टाइल्स लगा दिया है तो मैं अभी आईबीसी में ले जाऊंगा तुझे. So एक फ्लैट ओनर उसको ले जाता था and then poor guy was left high and dry. पूरा कंपनी लिक्विडेशन जाएगा, 6 महीने में नहीं रिजॉल्व आया तो it was like too many frivolous cases in the court.
Okay. Well, I think that calls an end to our fantastic session. I thank you, Jignesh Bhai, for a wonderful talk, and actually there were a lot of things that you told today which personally I was not aware of. I am sure a lot of our the attendees would not have been aware of a lot of things out here. So it was a really very good highlighting thing. I really appreciate you for taking time out, preparing yourself for all the webinar, because I know it doesn't happen overnight. You have to put in efforts for that, and I really appreciate for that. And I thank you from on behalf of Lions Forum. Yeah. And we look forward to having you more again in future. If there's any new coming up, we would definitely love to have you again.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Thank you. And one information that I would like to give to all the people who are attending today is that we are having the next webinar on Wednesday evening. It is by Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai, who is a well-known author and a thought leader. He is basically more articulate on Chanakya principles, Chanakya theory. He's written down many books, I think more than 10 books on Chanakya. He's called, he has been called by Singapore government to help them out using Chanakya theories. He is visiting US and many other countries to deliver lectures on Chanakya. So I think that would be an interesting session again on Wednesday evening, 4:30 p.m. same time. So I request you all to be there. We would definitely sending you out the messages and everything for that. So please look, I look forward to seeing you everybody on that. So with that, we call it curtains for today. Thank you everybody.